Good morning, friends. So we are going to be starting our next project today, and I'm really excited about this because we are going to be working with the principle of design, movement. And well, who doesn't like to move? I know I like to get up and I like to move. I know you guys like to go outside. You like to get up and do a little brain breaks and get your bodies moving. But in art, movement looks a little different. It's not always something that's physically moving. Sometimes movement is shown in very interesting ways with different elements of art. So we've learned lots about our elements of art, like lines and shapes and colors and textures, values. And then our principles of design, which is what movement is. Movement is one of our principles of design. It's kind of the way that you use those elements in a work of art. So we are going to be talking about how you can use lines to show movement. And I bet you might be able to think really, really hard and come up with a few ways lines can show movement. One example I can think of is if I'm trying to draw the wind. We all know you can't see the wind, but if I'm trying to draw the wind like a leaf blowing in the wind, or a car going really fast down the road, I might add a little swirly line for that leaf or a line right behind the car to represent the fact that it's moving, right? So in art, different types of lines can show different things, which is really neat. So if you have a vertical line, which is a line that's straight up and down in an artwork, they often appear to be very strong, right? So those types of lines seem tall, they seem strong, whereas a horizontal line, which is a line that goes side by side, seem very calm and a word called placid. So they just seem like very calm things. It tends to be things like our horizon lines. And then when you use those kind of wavy lines, a lot of times it's a way of showing some movement. So we are going to be using a couple different types of lines today, and we are going to create an artwork that shows lots of movement. So I'm going to show you a little example here. So we have this little example. There we go. And so we are going to be using vertical lines, diagonal lines, and ultimately making those into wavy lines that show movement. So for this project, you are going to need your piece of paper that I gave you that has tons of vertical lines and numbers. And your artwork, this paper is numbered 1 through 24. So you're going to need that. You're also going to need some markers, some scissors, some glue, and a big piece of 12 by 18 black construction paper, which I also gave you. All right, so you need those materials for this project. But for today, all you need is this paper and your markers. We're going to get to the other steps where we are going to be using that scissors, the glue, and the black paper a little bit later. All right, so let's get started making movement through lines. All right, guys, so we're gonna get started on our artwork. The first thing that I want you to do, you should have your piece of paper that is numbered. Now I want you to just double check for me to make sure your artwork is numbered 1 through 24. So for some of you guys, like for mine, that 4 got knocked off of that last 24. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna add that 24. I think some of them, maybe the 1 got knocked off. If you have any of those stripes that is missing a number, make sure you add that number that's supposed to be there. It's most likely going to be the 1 or the 24 that happened to. Just make sure that number is on there. Then I want you to write your name. Just anywhere on this paper that is on the lined side. Do not write your name on the opposite side, that blank side, because you will need to use that for your coloring. Also, write your teacher code. Please remember that teacher code, those first letters of your teacher's name and your grade level. So either WE2 for Weethy's class, WR2 for Wright's class, or C2 for Mrs. Comer's class. So once you have your name, your teacher code, and you've made sure your strips are numbered 1 through 24, we're going to flip this over. Now, we talked about how we're going to be using lines, different types of lines, to show movement and how different types of lines can be used. So, for this project, we're going to be using markers, all right? So, I want you to get out your markers. And what you are going to do is you are going to simply, using whatever colors you want, it's completely up to you, you are going to be drawing diagonal lines across this paper. Diagonal means they're kind of at a slant, kind of like a hill, going from maybe the top to the side, top to bottom, side to bottom. And you are going to fill the entire paper until there is no white left on it. Again, you can choose the colors that you add. You can use any colors that you want. You do want to use, of course, more than one color because you want to be able to see those different types of diagonal lines. Some of your lines can be thick, like that blue line would be really thick. Some could be thin, like maybe I wanted to draw this purple line and all I'm going to do is that right there. So much thinner. So you can change up how thin, how thick some of those lines are. You can create a pattern or you can just do colors at random. It is completely up to you. But diagonal lines is the type of lines I want you guys to be creating. So notice that mine are kind of coming from that corner, right? And I think I'm going to stick with mainly my cool colors with maybe a little yellow in there. Notice that I'm kind of making a variety of different thicknesses with my lines. Variety means more than one. So I have some that are really skinny, I have some that are kind of medium, and some that are very thick. All right, so I want you guys to color this whole paper. I'm going to do that. I'm going to show you what it looks like when I'm all done. All right, guys, so you can see here that I have colored my artwork in using those diagonal lines. I chose to do a pattern of blue, purple, yellow, green, blue, purple, yellow, green over and over again. That's what creates that pattern. Remember, a pattern is something that repeats, and that's one of our principles of design. I also used a variety of thicknesses of lines. My blue was probably my thickest line, then purple. Yellow's a little thicker than purple, a little less thick than blue. Green was my thinnest line. So I colored the whole thing. You do not see any white left on this side. Now, your next step in this project is going to require a pair of scissors, some glue, and your large 12 by 18 piece of black construction paper. The first thing that I want you guys to do is write your name and teacher code on this black paper here. Super important. We need to know whose is whose because we are going to be starting to cut this paper that has your name up and glue it to here. So you won't see your name that's on the back here. So write your name and teacher code on the black paper. And then grab your paper you colored and your scissors. When you flip it over on the back, you're going to notice all those lines that were copied onto your paper, as well as the numbers 1 through 24. What we are going to do is using your scissors, cutting along these vertical lines as neatly as you can. I want you to cut out numbers 1 through 12. I'm going to repeat that again, so listen very carefully. I want you to cut out each strip 1 through 12. If you think you might forget, you might go ahead and start and cut apart 12 from the rest of the paper. We're going to set the other half of that paper aside for later. Right now, we're just cutting out numbers 1 through 12. So, again, as neatly as you can, cut along those vertical lines. You want to use that hand-eye coordination that you have and just straight on the lines. You don't want to, if you can help it, you don't want these lines to wiggle and waggle. You want them as straight as possible. So again, you're just cutting directly on top of those lines for me. And you're going to cut all of them out, each and every one. Those numbers should remain in the inside of where you cut, otherwise it's going to get confusing. So you can see I'm just cutting mine out and making a little pile. All right, so I have my numbers cut out. I have them in a little pile. The next step is to grab that paper, that black paper that you wrote your name and teacher code on. All right, and your glue, and we're going to be starting here. So, starting with number 12, we cut out our strips numbered 1 through 12. We're going to start with strip number 12. And what I want you to do is I want you to find what would be close to the middle of your paper. And I want you to glue that strip number 12 down, color side up. So you're putting glue on the side that has your number on it. And I want you to glue it horizontal across your paper. Your paper should be vertical, long ways up and down like you see mine. And then you're gluing your number 12 strip horizontally across the middle of that paper. All right, so there's the top of my paper, at the bottom. That one's glued horizontal across the paper. Now, we're going to work down from 12 to 1. So 11 would be the next. Every time you glue one of these strips down, and you're going to glue all of them down eventually, you want to overlap one side of your artwork. You want to make sure that your number is on the same side, so I put my number over here. So you want to overlap one side, and you want the top of your strip to be about a finger width apart. So it's overlapping down here, meaning it's touching. It's kind of going over your first strip a little bit, and there's a finger width apart. So I'm going to add glue to number 11. Again, you want your numbers on the same side of your paper. So make sure that you're looking at that. I'm going to make it so that strip overlaps and then glue it down about a finger width apart. Then I'm going to find number 10. I'm going to add glue just like I did before, making sure my number 10 is on the same side as my other numbers. I'm going to overlap just slightly the bottom, so the same side needs to be overlapped each time, and then the top needs to be about a finger width apart. Notice your lines are, this line is slowly starting to move down. All right, then it comes my next one, number 9. Same exact thing. If you have little pieces like this one that just didn't want to stick down, add a little bit more glue, massage it in. Add that glue, overlap, finger width apart, massage it in, and keep going. All right, so you're going to get 12 all the way down to 1 glued in, following this exact same path. Once we are done gluing down 1 through 12, we're going to cut out 13 through 24, and we're going to do a very similar thing, just going the opposite direction. So I'll show you how to do that. So let's finish these, and see what that looks like, and then we're gonna work on our other half. All right, friends, so we've now successfully glued all of our numbers 1 through 12 down, 12 being in the middle, 1 being our last one over here. Notice it does go off the page a little bit, and that is okay. Now our next step is to take numbers 13 through 24, and we're going to do a very similar thing to what we did last time. We're going to carefully cut them out and make a pile, and then we're going to be gluing them down, but there is a special switch that we're going to make when gluing these down. So let's get them cut out first. Again, working on that hand-eye coordination, getting these cut out as straight and as neatly as we can. Just cut right on top of that line. All right, so now I'm done with my scissors, but I want to make my pile of my strips. And then grabbing that glue out, because we're going to need that again, I want you to find number 13. Number 13 is going to start right here with 12. We're going to do exactly the same thing we did over here, where we glued down the number overlapping one side and one finger width apart. The difference is we're going to overlap on this side. So again, there's that kind of little switch that we're going to make, that little difference from the first set of 12 numbers. And instead we're going to slowly overlap right here and make sure we have a finger width apart. And we're going to glue that down, massage that down. Grab number 14. Same thing, overlap. Give it a finger width apart and massage that strip down. We're going to do this just like we did before with every single one of our numbers until we get all the way up to number 24. So making sure that we have that about that finger width apart in between each one. All right, friends, and there we have it. We have this super awesome artwork, and this glue that I just glued on there will dry clear, but we have this super awesome artwork that shows how we can take lines. We just made diagonal lines on our artwork, and by cutting those apart and kind of spreading them around this way, it makes those lines look like they are moving through our artwork, which is super cool. So we've been able to show kind of lines and movement. Something that started as one type of line then turned into another kind of line, and that line just kind of makes our eye kind of wave along with it. So we've got this wavy line, and it looks super awesome. So you are officially finished, and you did. I can't wait to see these when they are all done, and how they look with all those amazing colors that you added and the super awesome patterns that you did with those diagonal lines that we started with. All right, double check, make sure that name and teacher code is on it, and I cannot wait to see these. Have fun.